Hello. So for my paper, I decided to analyze the movie Contagion and compare it to the coronavirus pandemic that we're experiencing right now and how that has effect on a global scale and how media has affected that. And more specifically, I was analyzing how the spread of bad information can be really dangerous, almost just as dangerous as the virus itself. And so my thesis statement for my paper said, the movie Contagion portrays an almost identical situation to what is being experienced today and argues that the spread of false information is just as harmful as the actual virus. And then the sentence after that says, as a guide for analysis, the movie Contagion was studied using archetypes to show how certain tricksters or false information can affect the impact of an apocalyptic journey. So basically, I was analyzing it using archetypes, and I was specifically looking into the trickster archetype and how that can play a big role in confusing people during the apocalyptic journey, which is the narrative that is taking place right now and in the movie Contagion. So in my analysis, I split it up into 3 different sections. The first one was the trickster archetype. So I talked about how the trickster in the movie Contagion was played by a character named Alan Crumwide, who was a blogger who spread false information about the virus in the movie, and he caused a lot of panic by having influence over his followers and spreading that information to them, and how detrimental that was to the vaccine that they were creating and what the government and the CDC was trying to do to protect the people. And then I also talked about how today the trickster archetype would be like social media and the spread of information that's happening and the panic that that's caused today because of all of the information floating around and how unreliable that can be sometimes, and how we never really know if what we're reading is true or not. And then the second thing I talked about in my analysis was how anybody can be an author. So I was talking about how in the movie, he was a blogger. He didn't have the correct credentials to be making the claims he was. He wasn't a doctor or anything, and because he seemed like he had the correct credentials, people believed him. And then I talked about how with the coronavirus, people believe things even though it might not have the correct credentials, which can be really dangerous. And then it's just kind of a domino effect because people spread that information, and then it just like spreads from people to people, and we never know if what we're actually reading or believing is actually reliable. And then the third thing I talked about was how the spread of information causes panic. So I just talked more about that and how in the movie the information that the guy was spreading caused a lot of panic and people to not trust the vaccine. And then I talked about how, also there was a quote that I liked from this section, which was given by a doctor in the movie, and it said, in order to become sick, you have to first come in contact with a sick person or something that they have touched. In order to become scared, all you have to do is come in contact with a rumor or the television or the internet. I think what Mr. Crumwide is spreading is far more dangerous than the disease. And that was the quote that kind of inspired this paper, because he was saying that the fear that comes along with spreading bad information and the panic that causes is far more dangerous than the virus itself, because that can spread easily and cause a lot of damage itself and unnecessary damage. And so then I talked about how today we've seen that with when people spread information and spread their opinions, it causes people to panic, and we saw that with people rushing to the stores and hoarding all of the supplies and preparing for an apocalypse, and it was unnecessary and it caused a lot of extra stress, and a lot of people felt like they needed to panic as well, even if they weren't panicking before, because they didn't want to be left out and left in the dust with nothing left, since everybody around them was panicking. And it was just this huge downward spiral and this huge domino effect because of all of this spread of information people were getting from online and from friends and family and articles and everything. So In the implication section, I just kind of talked about how contagion and the coronavirus weren't just talking about how bad a situation can be. It was also talking about how bad it can be to spread bad information and how that can be dangerous as well, and how the media keeps us connected with everybody and we're able to see how this is affecting everybody globally, which is cool, but it also can be really dangerous and can cause a lot of bad things as well. And so I thought that one of the takeaways from comparing the movie to the pandemic today is that we shouldn't let our fear overrule our common sense, and we should be still thinking outside of just ourselves and what's good for us in the situation, and we should be thinking about what's good for the greater good and following the actual recommendations from the CDC and looking more into reliable sources. So that's just a little bit into what I wrote in my essay. So if you want to read more, it'll make more sense. But thank you.